Welcome back to What the Flick. I can't contain my excitement for this one. From the moment we met, I think we kind of hit it off here. This is Troy Duffy, by the way.
Hello, everyone.
Creator, mastermind behind the cult classic Boondock Saints that I already told them that it kind of, I think my mom might be giving you a call to be like, what did you do to my son in the early days? Because I watched this when I was 12, 13 years of age and rewatched it pretty recently.
Well, what I'd tell your mom is, what are you letting your kid watch that for at 12 years old?
By the way, Mom, you're fine. You didn't give it to me. I found it by myself and I watched it. So yeah, so happy to have you here, man.
So happy to be here.
From a fan of the show, fan of the soon-to-be show, but fan of the movies, and a fan of yourself, and kind of looked up your history already. I'm fascinated to really dive deep. We've only got an hour, unfortunately, but we could probably sit here all day and discuss. So
yeah, I think so.
Thanks for coming in. The first thing that I wanted to discuss is a little bit off the cuff. Usually when you have interviews like this, most people will talk to actors and talk about their big break and how they broke into and what role they kind of got cast to break through. But similar story with directors and writers, right? Because what I believe from what I've read up on you is you came to Los Angeles as a musician, correct? And you thought up the concept of the Boondock Saints based on an experience that you witnessed. And I'm so fascinated to hear your take on this story. How did it come about, basically?
Well, it was a bunch of things that I witnessed, you know. Moving into Hollywood at the time, me and my brother were living in a virtual crack house. You know, there's lots of crime. I came home once to find a guy rummaging through, like I unlocked my door and found a guy rummaging through my stuff, and I was like living with my brother in this hovel, and I just immediately assumed that he was my brother's friend. So I'm like, where's Taylor? And he's like, I don't know. The guy sits down on my couch and lights up a cigarette. And after like a minute of talking to him, I realized this guy was robbing me. And I literally then turned on him and I grabbed this guy, and all of a sudden it's like, hey man, don't do that. You know, so all that kind of stuff is this kind of stuff we were going through, and I just was, you know, I had this movie kicking around in my head, and it was at kind of a low point in my life. I was a bouncer at this club on Melrose, and I just write in notebooks. You know, I actually borrowed a friend's script. I didn't know what a script, I had never read one, so I wanted to get the format down, all that stuff. And I would write on these notebooks and then transfer it to computer, you know, on the weekends, because that was before the internet and all that stuff, like 95, 96. And, you know, in between, you know, putting down bar fights and checking IDs, you know, and then like sort of, I guess fate intervened, because the day I got done with it, when my old buddy CB walks in the bar, and now he's an assistant over at New Line Cinema, right? Which I didn't even know at the time. I didn't know anybody. And he read it, loved it, and he's like, you mind if I take this out? And I was like, have at it, bro. What am I going to do? And, you know, from that point, it was a nuclear bomb dropping in my life. You know, it was first as this kind of flurry of talent agencies wanting to sign you. I didn't even know what that was at the time. Yeah. You know, I was like, what do I got to do? Yeah. And CB's like, what do you mean you got to do? They represent you. They like what you wrote. So I'm like, well then, is it like a sports star? Is there a signing bonus? I was so naive. I didn't know shit about anything. So then sort of round two, you know, once I signed with William Morris, and then all these movie studios wanted to do it. And it became boiled into like a bidding war between Mike DeLuca from New Line and Harvey Weinstein from Miramax. And that's kind of how it started, I guess. Fans ask me all the time, how did you get, like in young filmmakers, they want to know, how did you get your opportunity to be a first-time director after directing nothing? I hadn't directed a toothpaste commercial at that point. And so they always ask, and the interesting part of that is that Harvey and Mike were going at it so hard, you know, to get Boondock, that in the middle of this bidding war, I just went, I want to direct it. Just came out of my mouth. You know, and they both just stopped fighting, looked at me, and were like, okay, and they went back to it. So bidding wars are kind of good and kind of bad, because it's not really a focus on the material anymore, it's focused on winning. They both wanted to win. So that's, I mean, I essentially stole my opportunity to direct by exploiting that situation, and I am not too proud of that, but I wouldn't change a thing, you know? So it ends up kind of going with Miramax, because me and Harvey get on pretty good. You know, I remember the end of our first meeting together. He was like, Duffy, what do I gotta do to get this script? And I was like, how about a big old kiss on the lips? And there was this really this awkward silence in the room, and all my producers are like deer in the headlights, and I'm just looking at him, and he's looking at me, and he just gets up out of his chair. He's like, all right. And I get out of mine. I'm like, okay. And like we start walking towards each other, you know, we embrace, and I go in for it, and Harvey's all, and he turns his cheek, gives me the cheek. I know. So the thing that screwed it all up was like, during the casting process, which I had already been looking well before this. I had found these two magical guys, Sean Patrick Flannery and Norman Reedus. I just knew they were the ones immediately, but Harvey was sort of set on names, you know. So I shot a screen test with my guys to try to convince him, and he was just kind of stuck on the movie star thing, and I didn't really want to do that. And I knew I had found my brothers. So, you know, he kicked my ass out, and eventually we were able to just refinance it and with my cast, and I was able to do my first film my way, and I guess I wouldn't change a thing. I loved the story, you know, and I wanted fresh faces on there. That way nobody's carrying baggage into the theater when you see it that you have to overcome. You're seeing Connor and Murphy MacManus, and not, you know, some big actor trying to play that until he can get you over it and then, you know, proceed with the story. I just felt that no names would be the thing, and you know, frankly, I like there's a lot of very talented actors out there, you know. And they often don't get their break. That's the story you hear in this industry. All these kids that just audition and they get all the way down to the callbacks, and then they just hire, you know, some big movie actor. And then I think that's a shame in a lot of ways. You know, there's too much talent in this world to do it that way. I enjoy finding new people, new faces.
I mean, it's amazing to hear. Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the industry that relate to that. It happens quite a lot of time, especially with the new media wave of social media, where it's often looked at who's got a following to come in and will often go and take a role from someone that maybe has been grinding for quite some time because they don't have the social media acclaim to add to a project to get it there. But rather than getting into that discussion, as a fan of the movie, I think that I speak for most fans when I say that is so evident that it's not about the people that are often playing the character, but it's the characters themselves. Like, I actually have an opinion as to when someone plays a role so well, I don't think it's an insult when you see them on camera and you go, oh, that's Colin MacManus. Like when I see Norman Reedus on The Walking Dead, despite how fantastic of a job he does as Daryl, I'm still thinking, when's he going to pull out the gun? When am I going to see the beads here?
I'm so proud of Norman. He's killing it on that show, man. I mean, he will be the last guy that dies on that show, as far as I'm concerned. He will never die. He will never die. You can't kill Daryl. But like, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of Walking Dead fans that are Boondock fans and kind of look at him that way. I mean, I've had, you know, pictures from the set of Walking Dead where they set it up in the brothers' classic pose and they're killing people. So, yeah, I think the tradition continues.
Yeah, no doubt.
With The Walking Dead.
How did you your process work in finding out what you wanted things to look like? Was that part of the script writing process, or did you kind of pick it up as you went along?
I don't know. To me, it's like we all watch movies. I just knew what I wanted to see. So it might have been very rudimentary at the very beginning to do it the way I did, but it was almost like put a camera here. I didn't know anything about lenses. I'm like, this is the shot that I want to see. Okay, now I want it moving when the guy's coming down. And I would literally just, you know, like if it was like, I didn't know any lens names or anything, so I'm like, it's too big. You know, my DP would switch to a small, okay, that's it. So it was very kind of like, just from watching movies. I knew what I saw in my head, and I just tried to translate that as best as I could, almost like a caveman to all these people that were high-level technicians and knew what they were doing. And we didn't stop until we got it. What I saw in my head, that's it. It's not. There's no. I think a lot of us have that. I think we've all seen lots of movies that we love. And those. I mean, we did this thing when we were doing 2. We would do this like rip-off thing. We were like, we would take shots from other movies, you know, and me and Sean and Norm were just messing around the whole time. We're like, all right, we're gonna start in a Goodfellas shot from behind, and we're gonna go like 7 brides, 7 brothers, Yentl, 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 and we're done. We were just starting to name the dumbest flicks ever, and like every time we stole a shot from somebody, we would just totally say, all right, we're doing a Yentl, go.
Did you, when you shot specifically talking about the toilet scene, did you realize when you shot it, like, is it one of those moments where you're just like, That's going to be amazing. That's going to be one of those iconic shots that people are going to be talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Like that one, the big stunt like that. Stunts like that are godsends to sets in a couple of ways.
Yeah.
First of all the technicians are done with their job except the stunt wear. You get hair and wardrobe, everything's already done. And they're all just sitting there kind of biting their nails, looking at a guy at the top of a 5-story building who's about to jump off with a goddamn toilet, you know? So those moments on set, when you pull that off, everybody cheers, you know, and it's a way to unite a set.
Yeah.
And the next morning, they're coming in to work with bells on. You know, it's a way for people to really get together and unify those big stunts and the big action sequences. So it's more than just, you know, let's get something cool in camera. It's a way to have everybody focused towards the same goal. All of a sudden, you got an army now, and not just some dispersed bunch of people that are all clocking a paycheck.
Yeah.
But with the toilet scene, I gotta say, I mean that would be the scene. That one's really special to Boondock fans and to me because, yes, it was a kick-ass stunt. Yes, it was brutal. Yes, it was violent. But that scene was also the scene that cemented my lead characters in the hearts of the audience. They went from spectators to fans largely in that scene because, and not because it was just a big, cool, kick-ass stunt. It was because what was behind it. They understood that these brothers will do anything to protect one another. And what sister, brother, best friend wouldn't want to think they'd do the same thing if it came down to protecting the people they love? Yeah. So there was a real point behind it that had to do with the heart. And that was the one, I think, that really kind of, it's not just a signature scene for Boondock, because of course there's not too many deaths by toilet out there, but it was the one that really, you know, turned people into fans.
There's a lot of things when you get older and you watch something back, so a lot of things changing because obviously you're getting older and things start to, that still had the same impact when I watched it, because the way the movie's shot is, again, I'm not an expert, so I don't know how things are framed and how the movie.
All right.
The way the movie is, like the way it progresses to that point, you're still trying to, you know there's something there, and you're trying to identify with these characters because they're Irish characters, are sharp-witted, they're jokesters, they have a laugh with each other, even in the situations when they're smacking each other with meat. You're like, I'd probably do the same to my brother. And then at that point, it switches, and you start to see the serious aspect of it when you're like, okay, rather than try to get yourself out of a situation that is obviously a predicament, everything else becomes redundant other than your brother's life. And in that specific moment, I think that's where it cemented. Sean is the fantastic actor for that role as well, because he's kind of got that serious aspect to him where he wants to take charge a little bit more so, and he sees how vulnerable his brother is in that situation. And nothing else matters. Ripping a toilet from literally out of the ground, and as you're trying to even contemplate whether it's feasible, throw that out your head. I don't even care whether it's feasible. I would do whatever it takes to help my brother. And as someone that has an older brother, I'm like, yeah, exactly. That toilet would have been ripped out and tossed over a Russian's head. The other one that I wanted to touch on, more so how it encompasses the character of Willem Dafoe as basically the agent that's obviously pursuing the brothers. When he comes to the scene where they've just assassinated all the Russians, and he decides to break into a river dance, like something like, I need to know, like, how did you write? How does that come into your head when you're writing that?
All right, that's a good story.
This is why I knew this would be a great one to pick up on. I need to know.
To me, I believe that you direct actors just by getting to know how each one of them runs their own engine, getting them to getting to know them as people, and you can learn as much about an actor over dinner at a restaurant as you can working on a set with them. What I learned about Dafoe is that he's sort of what I call a Zen shark. He always needs to keep moving all the time. He's working with his Wooster Group's theater group in New York all the time. He's on stage, and then he'll go and do this little, you know, independent foreign language film over here, and then some big Spider-Man thing over here. He is a sort of artist, and what I got into the groove with him, and as I got to know him, I realized that you need to explore the scene with Willem, because what he's looking for are the dramatic moments that aren't necessarily on the page. We began to use the script as a blueprint to try to find cool, fun things that maybe weren't there. And you know, when we were shooting that scene, it just kind of, again, popped out of my mouth from knowing him. I was like, I think you should dance in this scene. And he's like, that'd be totally inappropriate. That's, by the way, that's my Defoe. It would be totally inappropriate, Duffy. So I was like, yeah, it would be totally inappropriate. And then all of a sudden, he was like, we become two kids in a sandbox, and we just invented it right there. That wasn't in the script. Wow. And that stupid scene became so iconic to Boondock fans. It was just, and it was something that was off the cuff from knowing how a particular actor likes to work and tapping into that. Now, a guy like Norman Reedus, very different. Norman, it doesn't like to prepare too much because he gains his energy from being in the moment, you know? So I kind of came to the realization that at certain points I had to direct Norman more like a quarterback, and he's my lead, a football coach rather, and he's my lead quarterback. You know, and I'd be like, you get in there and kill everything moving. Go! You know, and all of a sudden you'd see this force of nature be given birth to, and everybody on set's like, yay! Yeah. And an actor like that, you know, it's a different approach. And it worked better with Norman that way because he gains his energy from being in the moment. You know, and I see it all the time on Walking Dead, man. I watch that unlike any other person in the United States. I'm just looking at Norm, and I can see when he's doing it. I can see when he's been trained a little too hard, and I can see when he's just like, screw it, not listening to anybody, and just going in and doing his thing.
As an actor standpoint, when like, so I've been through some teachings of trying to understand Meisner technique and other things, and a lot of times it's often portrayed that there's a specific way to do it, and then every now and again you'll hear from a director, as you just mentioned, is there's no specific way. It's just about bringing out that kind of inner personality through the character, because if you meet anyone that has an understanding of what acting is, they'll never tell you that acting is acting, it's doing. It's just allowing the kind of the inner parts of your personality to shine through and come through a different character. So in the character of Willem Dafoe, I think one of the most memorable characters that I've seen him play, even though he's done some phenomenal roles, is that it didn't look like he was playing a character. It almost looked like he was just allowing for parts of his personality to come through and be more prominent in front of the camera, regardless of how almost the shock value, which at that day and age it wasn't as common to see someone in such a prominent role be an openly gay detective in that moment. But it didn't. It was just memorable in a way that it allowed for him to come through. Was that part of you think you're doing and just allowing that to? I
think that's probably one of the reasons Willem took the role. The fun of it all, mixed with that type of a thing, having a sort of a strong leading gay character like that was unapologetic about it, which we didn't really see much back then.
Yeah, let's be honest. Yeah.
And so it became more interesting for him to do that and explore those parts of it. And he's also like, I mean, but it's like with virtually anything you see him in, he changes into that guy. You know, remember Elias in Platoon? I never questioned anything.
No, exactly.
You know, I was just like, that guy's awesome. He can just do it. He's one of those chameleons that can just do it, you know, and a natural like that. But he's explored his acting talent and the way he gets into roles so much by now. He's just become, you know, if you talk to actors, 9 times out of 10, they'll list your top 5 actors. Dafoe will be in that mix all the time. And he's just sort of one of those guys. I don't really care to know how they do it. You know, for me, it's just in the moment, let's get to know you. Let me try to figure out how to, you know, direct you more towards what I'm seeing in my head in a way that you don't feel like you're being directed at all. You know, so in terms of the magic these people have in them, I don't want to know how it works. I mean, when you talk about Meisner technique and Stella Adler and her technique and everybody's technique, I'm glad that helps actors. But I could give a shit.
Yeah.
You know?
On the topic of the memorable actors, as much as all of them are, I think obviously the Scottish in me needs to touch on Billy Connolly, because it's part of the reason why I wanted to get into a career like this as well, because this is a man that many people idolize in Scotland. We were talking a little bit off camera. He was in the shipyards. He learned a lot of his humor from the harsh, cold mornings in Glasgow, where, trust me, nothing will prepare you for those mornings. They are quite simply horrendous. But either way, he transitioned and then became a phenomenal comedian. And then his role in this movie, I read up, before I realized I had the privilege of talking to you, I had some stories that I had read about. I don't know if they're true, so I need to find out more. So, is it true that he was so happy about playing this role that he couldn't stop smiling on set, therefore he had to be given a cigar to kind of focus himself more so on the character to stop him smiling?
Yes, but he didn't know that. Like, he smokes cigars. Billy's a big cigar guy. Half the time I see him, we meet at a cigar bar. But he was smiling so much. Before he shot that big scene where he's in the street and he rips open the thing and pulls off all the guns and goes to town, he was doing a live show for all the people in that neighborhood that were on the edges of the set watching. And I had to stop him and go, we literally have to shoot right now. But yeah, he did I think the first take without it, and just had this huge smile on his face. And I didn't tell him. I was just like, hey, maybe you should just keep the cigar in. That works. And he's like, all right. He could, he was like, terrific. I get to smoke too. And it just worked out terrific.
I mean, if you haven't looked into Billy Connolly and any stand-up, then do yourself a favor and go look and listen to his song called "I'm an Evil Scotsman" as well. By the way, it's probably one of the best songs. You'll love your song. I want to figure out just really quick on the release itself, right? So, a lot of people consider it a little bit more of a lukewarm release in theaters. Probably there's discussion that could be had around the inconvenient timing as well, that there was a huge shooting that happened around the same time that this movie, which was a badass movie involving a lot of guns, etc. The Columbine shooting happened around then, so it more so took off when it was released onto at that point it was Blockbuster kind of video. What was your thought process through that? Were you thinking to yourself as a director and the creator of this, this movie was going to resonate with people more so in theaters, or was it going to resonate more so when it went on to?
Well, first we got to clear something up. I mean, yes, the Columbine blacklisted us from U.S. screens for sure. It happened right when we were showing the movie to major studios and seeing who would buy it and get behind it, and we were having huge reaction. Like 400, 500 people at a time at a Paramount lot, Fox lot, and nobody was leaving. And then finally this one buyer came up to us and said, you guys, I mean, yes, it's great, but nobody's buying this. You've been blacklisted because of the Columbine incident. So that was a devastating blow. Billy was the only one that couldn't give a shite. Billy came out and he's like, so what? We're rock stars, screw him. And he just knew, so we got the Blockbuster deal, but I kind of wanted to get it in theaters. And this is just kind of clear up this misconception. It was basically the only place we were able to get it in was 2 theaters. One was in, I believe, Waltham, Massachusetts. Not even in the city of, it was like well outside. One was at the Hollywood and Vine double feature thing for $3. Now, at the Hollywood and Vine one, it barely made any money because it was, I mean, you're literally, nobody knew what it was. So you're literally hoping that people get enticed by the poster as they walk by to go in and buy a ticket. However, Waltham one made $30,000 in 6 weeks, $38,000. Now, if you actually extrapolate that money, you're looking at a huge hit. Just a moderate release would have put it in the tens of millions easily.
No doubt.
So the indication was, we should go theatrical with this just by those numbers. And the theater, the funny story, the theater wouldn't give up the film to us because Blockbuster said it's going to invade our window. We're now going to start putting this in stores. And they had to threaten to sue to get that film back and get them to stop viewing it because there was just packed every performance. So even though it's true that it was all in, that it was a lackluster thing in theaters, it's actually not true because it was in essentially one theater. And it made all that money in one theater in 6 weeks, and it just had huge potential. But Blockbuster was like, okay, we got to put this in our stores now, 7,000 stores or something nationwide. We can't have you. And then finally the theater gave it up. So that's kind of a story nobody knows about. It always kind of upsets me when people say, oh, lackluster performance in theaters. It technically wasn't. Well,
that's interesting. I'm glad that you cleared that up as well, so because it kind of adds more so to the overall novelty of what it was. But do you think though that those obstacles kind of made it such a cult classic in the way that I told you a little bit again, Trainspotting is a movie that I largely consider one of my favorite movies of all time and so impactful. Boondock Saints in a similar way because it almost felt like I found it without many people not really knowing where I came from about it, where we were like, this movie's amazing. It kind of felt like it was my own a little bit. It was like, I found this movie and it's had such an impact on me. Do you think that kind of novelty factor is why many people were drawn to it?
Definitely, but it just, I mean, they really had no choice. I mean, they can only get a Blockbuster, and you find some cool little indie gem like that. I remember mine was Highlander when I was a kid. You know, there can be only one. Me and all my boys were doing it, and not too many people were aware. And you get that kind of, you know, glimmer in your eye when you get to show a friend and have him go, "Oh my God, it's so cool."
I literally showed my friend it and had that same thing. I was like,
that's what.
Don't tell your mom.
That's what this fan base has been doing, you know, year after year. That's why it grew and grew and grew. It's like the Boondock Saints. It's almost 20 years later. We're still talking about it. It has the shelf life of a chunk of freaking uranium, and that's why fan after fan just kept converting and bringing them into the fold and making new fans. And as much as I love that, I remember the reaction of the first fans, because it wasn't kind of like, hey, we found this cool indie gem. Yeah. It was like, finally, these people in Hollywood make a movie we want to see, and they don't even put it in theaters. Yeah. They were just so pissed off about that. You know, and I knew that we had sort of fought the good fight on that, and it didn't work out for us. But then I felt like that reaction kind of validated everything, and then it just destroyed on video. What was your thought process from taking it? It was a kind of lessons that you learned from the first one that you took into creating the sequel, and how did you kind of evolve maybe as a director moving into that? Oh yeah, two totally different shoots with totally different feels. Yeah, and you know, you learn a lot by directing a film, but you know, like most artists, you just watch your stuff and notice all your mistakes or how much better this could have been or that could have been. So I mean, it's I think that what a major lesson I learned on 2 was, you know, how to sort of work with studios, because the first one was done independently, for sure. A little $6 million budget, and we had a lot of control. Then when you work for studios, you know, you have to really kind of pick your battles and the things you fight for. And because the second one was Sony, you know, and you know, I learned that, and I'm grateful for those lessons as well. You know, it's just kind of growing up in the business, I guess, because we've kind of already gone through it, but I went from complete neophyte, and everything Boondock did was kind of underdog, and this audience kept growing, and we were lucky enough to do a sequel 10 years later. Yeah, I mean, what $6 million film is even viable 10 years later to even discuss doing a sequel, you know? And so you learn as you go. It's all I can say. And to me, you know, it's also about the people you surround yourself with. I have producers that are not only friends but that I work with that are talented. I have cinematographers and stuntmen that are like that. Yeah, they'll just go to the wall for you, and it's also about that, you know. And to touch on the producers you kind of surround yourself with, I believe from a video I was noticing again before we had arranged this interview, when I was freaking out, fanboying out about the TV series in Boondock 3 and things like that we want to discuss. I saw a video and I was obviously thrilled to see, has the original producers and all the kind of team that was surrounded it coming back for the future TV series and origins in Boondock 3? Is it like reuniting the team again for that? That's what I aim to do, you know. We have some controversy right now with Sean and Norm. Unfortunately, it's public controversy, and I don't like engaging in controversy with friends of 20 years. Yeah, especially, you know, talking about it in front of a camera. Yeah. But I mean, this has created such confusion with the fan base. I think we better you know, I can address a few things if I can. There's a lot I can't talk about, but you know, here goes. Yeah. First off, I don't know where this meme kind of came from that I was considering recasting Sean and Norm for Boondock 3. Never discussed, never considered by me. You don't make a Boondock 3 without Sean Flannery and Norman Reedus. Yeah. They are Connor and Murphy MacManus. They are the brothers. That's it. The second thing, these are 2 different projects. The television show and 3 have different producers, studios, financiers involved, and I think that that's added to the confusion, because I've always wanted Norm and Sean to do 3 and be involved in the television series with me whenever time permits. I know they're busy guys and have to do their thing, but it's Boondock, you know, and there's lots of other ways they can be involved. And because it's an origin story, the brothers are going to have to be recast with new, younger guys that are going to take this into the future. I mean, the story of we can get into the story of the television show in a second, but they have to be recast in the show, in the television show. but it's Boondock, and it's sort of, you know, a baby of the Boondock family, and they should be there with me whenever time permits to help out, and they can be executive producers, they can direct episodes every now and then. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat. And I know Sean's come out saying that they have, you know, they've decided not to do Boondock III. And all I can say is, you know, I hope that our friendship and all we've been through together kind of gets us through this. If it doesn't, and Sean and Norm decide they're going to walk away from a legacy, I want every fan out there to know that I will be fighting to keep that legacy alive with one hell of a television show. You know, a lot of franchises that maybe cash in on those types of things, it's pretty easy for them. Yeah. With us, it's been a kind of a rocky road since I announced to the fan base that I'm doing this television show, which was partly their idea. Yeah. You know, they were like, and I knew that Boondock translated very well would translate very well to the small screen. But it's become a very hard thing to do. I just know that it's the right thing to do, and I'm not going to stop until it's done. I will not be dissuaded. And you know, I know that fans are nervous. I know that we're engaging in public tiffs with friends of 20 years, and that sucks. But this is the hard thing to do, which also tells me it's the right thing to do. Yeah. You know, the right thing is almost always the hard thing.
The fans know that are probably tuning in, screaming at me, "You stupid Scottish, get to the point. When is this coming out? When can we see it?" What is the plan of the rollout? Because I know you have a very unique rollout as to how you want this to unfold in terms of utilizing the fans to help maybe even get the message out. Like, what is the plan behind it?
I need help. I need. Well, first, let me just kind of give you what we're doing with Boondock is kind of a unique thing with the television show. It's an origin story and a reboot. It contemplates two brothers who grew up in Ireland with an idealized concept of life in America. It's the land of milk and honey. Let's go there and get our little slice of the American dream. So they go and come here and only to find this. What's going on today? You know, Trump is president, civil rights eroding, lack of justice in America. So when they get here, you know, they have this community of South Boston. It's their new adoptive community that's embracing them. And they basically get into vigilantism as a way to protect the people that they love in their new adoptive community. So I think there's a very timely thing to this. Having brothers that rage against injustice at a time in America where there is massive injustice, I think is going to give our show, I think it's going to make it the people's show. Boondock Origins will be the people's show, as far as I'm concerned. And the people need to help me out, because I have vowed to scour the earth to find these two new young guys that are going to fill these shoes and take Boondock into the next generation. And that's a tall order. So we've opened up a Facebook page, which is going live right now, called I Want to Be in Boondock. And it's a way for fans to audition. It's an open worldwide casting call for fans to audition for Boondock Saints to be those boys, because I am going to find them come hell or high water. And fans, I hope that they vote, like and dislike everybody's audition. That way we can start sifting through them, eliminating people, and get down to the final 10 who I intend to put through an obstacle course of auditioning to find out if they write down to their DNA who the right guys are. So I Want to Be in Boondock Facebook page. Very soon I'm going to be doing a video address to what I want for the first audition. And I hope fans respond. I hope fans vote. I hope fans audition, because we need help. I need your help to find them. They're somewhere out there, and we got to find them. And I need that same magic that Sean and Norm had. I remember when I walked into a room with them for the first time, there was this really odd thing happening. They were finishing each other's sentences, and it was a very strange thing to feel, and I just knew it right there. That's what I need to find.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Rocco is back. Is he in for the
Yeah. One of the really cool things to me about this is, like, it's going to be inside things with the fan base. Every time you see an actor from Boondock I or II in the television show, not reprising their own role, doing something new, you know. And Rocco is an amazing actor. It's another friend story. He was actually the manager at the bar I worked at when all this went down. I wrote him into my screenplay based on his personality and what I saw. I just exaggerated it. And then, you know, I made my entire movie contract. You get Boondock Saints as long as you accept Sean Patrick Flannery, Norman Reedus, and David Della Rocco in these roles. Everything else we can cast, but those roles, and they signed it. So I put it right on the actors you don't get the movie unless you agree. And Rocco is going to come back in the television show as this really cool character based on a couple of guys that I know named Gino DiPrato. He's one of those kind of old school mobsters, but with a heart. He can be very tough, and when he kind of turns that switch, watch out. He's considered basically the toughest guy in Boston, but at the same time, very fair, and he's the second in command, and his boss is a shite head. Is that a word? Terrible guy. He's our big evil in season one. Is Rocco's boss, this guy named Motown Tempesta. So Rocco, or the new Rocco, you know, the younger Rocco, the younger version, he obviously has this sort of dead-end job in the mob as a package boy. Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of drama around that. But the only guy that loves him is Gino, who will be played by the old Rocco.
That's amazing.
So you have the fans are going to be able to see not only what Rocco can do in another, extend his acting skill. You just kind of wonder how long it's going to take them to get over it and accept him in the new role and accept the other Rocco and let everybody keep going. And there's all kinds of things we can do like that. I mean, imagine characters that sort of cater to the characters they created the first time around. Yeah, awesome. I think it's just an aspect of the show that I love. Another reason that tells me I'm on the right track no matter how hard this is.
I think that story alone, I can already hear there's probably a bunch of actors watching who are working in a bar already with some guy that he's probably been writing a script, and they're going to come in and be like, I need to start upping my personality because this guy's going to write me in sometime soon.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, it doesn't happen often in Hollywood where new people, come out and get their shots. But it happens, and it certainly happens with me. I've done that with everything I've done. Wow. And I'm dead serious about it. We need to find those boys. And by the way, there's going to be a second phase with casting a new Rocco, because those are some big shoes to fill as well.
Yeah. Another scene that I wish I could get to as well with the restaurant scene that I wish I could talk about. It's
yeah, where he comes in.
He comes in, he's just like, and he's talking to the
dude. That was fucking the day we shot that. Rocco, I go out back and he gets done with his thing, and he's got this tuna sandwich in his hand. It's in the back alley behind this place called the Lakeview Lunch, which was a very famous little restaurant. I think they still got it in Toronto. And he's just sitting there with a tuna sandwich, half eaten, and he's not moving. And he'd already shot the scene. I thought, like, did he get deaf by all the squibs or something? And I walk up to him, and he's just looking the strangest thing ever. I'm like, what's up, bro? You did a great job. He's like, Willem Dafoe just told me I was going to be a star, and he really liked the way I acted. And I'm like, okay, that's good, right? He's like, yes. And I'm like, you can eat that sandwich? He's like, no, I think I shouldn't eat the sandwich. It's like, he was like exactly that far through the sandwich when Dafoe came up and called him a genius, and he's like, no, I can't eat it. I should maybe have this framed or something. It was so hilarious.
Is there other projects that have caught your eye that maybe you've been looking at, and either projects that have been made that you thought, I wish I could have made an impact on that, or projects that are coming in the future that you think, I'm going to install the same sort of sense on that?
You as an actor, how many times have you seen somebody play a role and go, oh, I could have done a way better job?
More often
That's what they all say.
It happens every single time. Every time you turn on a TV screen, it's just you see someone up there and you think to yourself,
I'm way better than that guy.
Francis Maxwell's up there.
Guy's shite. Guy's shite.
It happens way too often, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's a bullshit hypothetical question, but I also love it. But I mean, there's an easy answer.
It was on the paper. It was on the paper. They were telling me.
It's an easy answer for me. Black Mass.
Wow.
Black Mass is like, that's the one I wish I would have been tapped to write and direct. I grew up with those stories of Whitey Bulger and the Winter Hill and the Irish mob guys, and it's very location specific, a location I'm familiar with, people there that I'm familiar with. I would have probably made it bloodier. I would have probably focused more on the mongrel nature of the Irish mob, and how they were not like any other faction of organized crime at the time. But, coulda, woulda, shoulda, shit. I feel like an actor that said, that guy sucks, I could have done it better. No. But yeah, and by the way, they did a great job.
I feel like you...
Fucking Depp was killing it in that one, man.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. I feel like you were on the phone to my dad before this, because it's exactly what he says about that movie. He says, well, in his words, Johnny Depp was fucking great. So he was, but I wanted more. Like, it's because I think why I'm so fascinated by this is because people think that the Boston mob scene and everything that was around it is just specific to, well, not just specific to those in Boston, but it transcends, man. Like, as soon as I hear that there's a movie that focuses around the area of Boston, there's an Irish gang involved, or if it's The Town, The Departed, any of that sort of thing, like, there's such a huge audience for it across seas as well, in Scotland and Ireland, and I think that's part of the reason we're so drawn in Boondock Saints resonated with us, because it's such a...
Like, if it happens in Boston, it's going to be, like, brutal.
If it happens in Boston, I'm there, and I'm
one level bloodier than everything else.
Get me in there, get me shot by someone, as long as I'm part of it. You know, it's fascinating to figure out.
Did you see The Town?
Oh, I love The Town. I feel like anything. I mean, my opinion, just there's two guys shooting the shit about actors. I think Ben Affleck should direct and star in everything he does. I think he does a phenomenal job when he has the ability to kind of orchestrate where he's going to go with it.
He really needs to work on his Boston accent, though. Just kidding. Yeah, he's just so good, especially when he's in his element.
When he gets
that's one of my favorite ones, is The Town.
Love that. Jeremy,
I even love the book. I read the book by Richard Harris. It's so good.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, this is just us talking about the future, but I heard that there's another story that's going to be coming out in the near future. Scorsese directing, De Niro starring, Pesky getting a whole crew back together, which is focused around, I think it's called The Irishman, and it's going to be coming out.
Oh, that's that Ohio thing. I read a book on that guy too. Yeah,
and it's
the guy had like green everything.
And I think that it ties into an Irish mob in Boston as well, which I think Bulger might be involved in that as well. I'm not sure, they'll connect at some point, but I'm going to look into it. But that is exciting for anyone involved.
It's going to be nice.
Attach those names to it. Troy Duffy, right here on What the Flick. Thank you so much for coming in, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been awesome, man. Let's have a drink after this.
Absolutely.
We should do that for real.
It's a Scottish ritual.
You're one of the few Scotsmen that I've met in LA that still drinks. They're almost all like, you know, I've had enough. I've had enough in my life.
I felt like in our body, like, we start to have like severe reaction if we don't have alcohol in at certain points. I know some people might attain that to being an alcoholic and you start to shivers. It's not that. I mean, like, the way superheroes need certain things, like our body starts to break down.
Like Popeyes,
something starts to break down.
I don't have a drinking problem. I have a drinking solution. That's what it is. Drinking solution.
All right, make sure to check out everything in regards to Boondock. We'll leave it all in the description. You can go to the Facebook page, you can go to the submission page, all that great stuff. And thanks again.